would all those who are willing and able please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Grant us, O Lord, light to our understanding, prudence in our investigating, foresight in our planning, sincerity in our deliberating, the grace to follow truth in our judgment. Help us to be moved in our decision neither by fear nor by self-interest, and to do our work faithfully. May we respect the authority vested in us, for thou art the source of all authority. And may we use our directives for the common good and for thy honor and glory. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Madam Clerk, roll call please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Here.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Present.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Here. Okay, this brings us to our first public comment portion. Do we have anyone wishing to address the board at this time? Anyone wishing to address the board? Okay, then we will move right into, we have a, well, I'll let you say it. But sorry, I was about to go right into JFS there, so stand by, Suzanne.
In special resolutions, resolution proclaiming World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Lake County, Ohio on June 15, 2023.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Suzanne.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammercheck. We appreciate the opportunity today to bring this resolution before the board. Obviously, this is an issue that is extremely important to the Department of Job and Family Services. We are the agency that is tasked with investigating allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of elderly folks in our community. It's estimated that 1 in 10 Americans right now are victims of elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation. And what's even more alarming is that research suggests that as few as 1 in 4 of those cases are actually reported to the proper authorities. During the year 2022, our department investigated over 450 cases of elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation. We have some of our team members here today with me in support of this resolution. I also wanted to share that to promote awareness on the issue of elder abuse in Lake County, we are partnering with several agencies in the community for our second annual walk, which is going to be held on Thursday, June 15th, next Thursday at 11:45. We're going to kick off that walk at the Department of Job and Family Services. As I mentioned, we're partnering with the Association of Specialists in Aging, Lifeline, and of course our agency in the Adult Protective Services Division at our agency. So we invite all of you and members of the public to join us for that walk next Thursday. Again, that's at 11:45. And then following the walk, there's going to be a brief presentation at the County Administration Building on the first floor. So we're going to start at Job and Family Services, walk around the square, and end here at the Administration Building. So again, thank you for considering this resolution today. We appreciate your support, as always, for this very important topic. And please note that purple is the color to raise awareness. It's the color designated for elder abuse awareness. So please consider wearing purple next week to show your support.
Very good. So it shall be done. Thank you. Gentlemen, anything you want to add?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I would just say not a year's gone by for more than a decade when I haven't taught about the issue of elder abuse in my estates and trust class. It's a problem that lawyers experience at the litigation end when all parties concerned are dead and we're fighting over the money. But the reality is elder abuse can only be prevented if it's reported before it happens, before the will is altered, relationships are severed, families are lost. This is a problem that has not gotten near enough attention, because the victims, by definition, almost never know they're victims. They think that the elder abuser is their friend, their savior, their financial advisor, when in reality that person is just taking advantage of them. And so it's very, very important. If you see something, say something. And the hotline that we have, and I'll let Suzanne repeat the number, is available, my understanding, 24/7, 365 to report elder abuse. So please, if you have any suspicion, any concern, let the professionals decide if there's something there. Don't say, I don't want to be that guy, I don't want to be that person. If you're concerned for a neighbor, let them know. Let some people shed some light on the situation and confirm that your neighbor is okay, because this goes, forget underreported, unreported most times. So thank you to everyone who's brave enough to speak out and to protect their neighbors, because elder abuse is a very real problem here in Lake County and everywhere. Suzanne?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Plechnik. The hotline number, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days of the week, 365 days a year, is 440-350-4000, and individuals should press 1 to be connected to the hotline.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dragovich.
I agree 100%. I believe that 1 in 10 is a low number, because I think a lot of the seniors are embarrassed, or that they were taken advantage of, or are afraid to come forward. I've seen it myself at the senior centers and things that come up actually through our office. I get calls that need help with a contractor taking advantage or something of that, and I encourage everybody to use that number. If you have a senior who's a neighbor, check on them, know their routines, know where they should be. If you don't see them for a length of time, check on them. And if you suspect anything, call the number. We don't ask you to take it into your own hands. We'll give you as much help as we can. So I applaud your effort and the effort of your staff. This is much needed in Lake County. I'm happy to have it here.
Thank you. And I'll just keep it simple from the law enforcement perspective. We have a simple saying: see something, say something. It's kind of a universal concept, so hopefully that will continue to resonate in our community. All right, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And the
You know what's
engineers.
next. Hold on, you know what's
Oh,
next.
sorry. What was I thinking?
What were you thinking?
Our clerk is very excited about the engineer's office.
He's just practicing for next week to get the meeting over and then put it on the wall. I figure I'll get this out of the way now, but
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item, please.
In the engineer's office, resolution authorizing an agreement between the Lake County Commissioners and Madison Village designating Lake County as the LPA for the LAK Middle Ridge Road, County Road 22 resurfacing project in Madison Village and Madison Township, PID to be determined, LCE project number 2023-012.
move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, Commissioner, this is an agreement with the Village of Madison, and for a joint project with us being the lead for this coming year to pave and recondition the section between Town Line Road and 528, which is the last portion of this road to be done in the last couple of years.
Coordination, and there was a little horse stealing going on. I believe we had to work through NOACA, move some things around, move some things up, move some things back, get these projects to align.
Yes, well, originally they had this project for 25. Madison Village has received some public works money for 24, and it needed to be done in 24, so we made arrangements with NOACA to move this one up and another project back.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Anything else? All right. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
In the Utilities Department, resolution increasing appropriations and transferring cash within Lake County Department of Utilities Solid Waste Fund and Project Fund 597.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
And the Commissioner's Office, resolution accepting the fiscal year 2024-2025 Community Corrections Act 2.0 grant and authorizing execution of the grant agreement between the Lake County Board of Commissioners on behalf of the Lake County Adult Probation Department and the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution declaring the Lake County Board of Commissioners regular meeting schedule beginning July 20th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the Board of Lake County Commissioners to enter into and/or renew cooperation agreements with the various municipalities and villages in Lake County for the utilization of funds made available by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Community Development Act of 1974 as amended.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Rhea, anything you want to add, or are you good with it?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing the Board of Lake County Commissioners to issue a request for qualifications for environmental and/or geotechnical services for the proposed Lake County Public Safety Center project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Jason?
Good morning, Commissioners. Resolution in front of you is essentially a public notice that would be issued tomorrow, assuming this gets passed, soliciting qualifications for environmental firms to perform Phase 1 analysis and some geotechnical soil borings at the footprint of the proposed public safety center. This has about a 14-day review time. I will review those along with our design team, score them, and in short fashion make a recommendation to the commissioners to bring on the most qualified firm to begin some of this preliminary planning and civil work across from the current jail facility.
Just so those who might be interested, this is all part of due diligence. You need to know what's in the ground before you even think about putting a shovel into the ground.
That is correct.
Gentlemen, anything else? Thank you, Jason. All right, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing execution of a professional services agreement between the Lake County Board of Commissioners and Project Management Consultants, LLC, to perform management, facilitation, and legal services for the proposed construction of the Lake County Public Safety Center in an amount not to exceed $555,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Jason?
Yes, Commissioner, on the same vein, PMC Consultants has been helping the county with this public safety center process for the better part of 18 months to 2 years probably at this point. Jeff Applebaum and his team have been an excellent resource for myself, for the Sheriff's Office, et cetera, to get us to where we are today. Moving ahead over the next 13 to 15 months, Jeff and his team, which is comprised of real estate attorneys, land use attorneys, a wide plethora of professionals, will help us in contract negotiations, contract preparations, contract review, request for qualification documents, i.e. the resolution you just passed, legal services, et cetera. And this coincides, the timeline coincides with resolution number 11 that's on today's schedule. As I noted previously, Jeff and his team have been very responsive. They have an in-depth knowledge of construction law in the state of Ohio, and with a potential project of this scale, I think this is a worthwhile resolution for consideration today to make sure that we hit all of our objectives legally, programmatically, et cetera, as we move forward.
And this is just a natural evolution of the process. This is the next step, which is we're not going out to bid. This is just a continuing on relationship.
Correct.
Anything further? Sir?
Mr. President, I would just note that Mr. Jeff Applebaum is a local lawyer and business owner in Kirtland, and our work with him not only reflects his national expertise, but our commitment to hiring local businesses as we do major county projects.
Thank you.
There you go. National presence and Lake County resident. Yay. All right, there's the magic in the mix. All right, Jennifer, clerk.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution to amend the mutual aid agreement between the Lake County Board of Commissioners and all political subdivisions to add the Lake County Sheriff or his designee as a permanent member of the Lake County Narcotics Executive Board of the Lake County Narcotics Agency.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? I'll just say this has been a long time coming, and thank you all for getting it across the line. We've got to do our last little bit. So with that, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Regovich as our Narcotics Board member for this year for working hard to shepherd this resolution through, and a special thanks to the Sheriff for being willing to be a permanent member of the Narcotics Board, because his insight is really necessary. That agency can't function without their partnership with the Sheriff's Office, so him being there is going to be, not just ex officio, but as a voting member, is going to be very helpful.
Very good.
Mr. President, I agree. He's at every meeting anyway, so, but his input is key in Lake County when they cover so much of it. And what we see today in narcotics is you know, the crux of everything that we do law enforcement wise. So his input is invaluable along with his staff. So it's great to have him as a voting member now.
Very good. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Resolution authorizing the Lake County Administrator to execute the professional service proposal Stage 2 criteria architect contract with HOK for the Lake County Public Safety Center project in accordance with the contract approved April 7, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Jason?
Yes, Commissioners. As noted in the caption, this is really a significant next step in the Lake County Public Safety Center that's been contemplated for the better part of a decade. As you recall, last April of 22, we entered what we called the first stage of the public safety planning process, was essentially the program and blocking and stacking process that was really spearheaded by Sheriff Leon Bruno and his team on to get our arms around scope, scale, site, pros, cons, etc., and then obviously a rough order of magnitude at that level. That project process was finished in the fall of 2022. As I've noted here countless times, this was presented to the Corrections Board, presented to this board, I think, in November. We've worked through plenty of due diligence with Jeff Applebaum and his team, Dave Hackman on the contract in front of you. And essentially what we're doing is we're exercising the option that we talked about 2 years ago, the on-ramp or the exit ramp, what have you. And so the resolution in front of you today will engage HOK, the same firm, to begin Stage 2, which includes an in-depth quick review of the program that was completed, and then they will get into schematic design, and then they will move that, once we get our schematic design, some cost estimating, then they will move that to detailed design. During this entire process, Jeff Applebaum and his team will begin the RFQ process to solicit, rank, review, interview, etc., the design build team, which after HOK state will be the handoff for this process. I'm really excited to get started with the sheriff and his team, HOK, etc. This particular phase, we've extended a couple weeks just to make sure we get everything correct. Probably first of the year we'll start to see a first number of significance that the commissioners will dig deep in, value engineer, etc. But this is an important step to begin the design, the true design of the future Lake County Public Safety Center.
Gentlemen?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I would just say a strong thank you to our county administrator for his hard work on this project. He came up through the planning department, so this is right in his bailiwick as we make sure that this public safety center fits in Painesville, fits the needs of our judiciary and sheriff's office, and frankly fits the needs of Lake County for many, many years to come. This is really the point where we are designing what the jail actually looks like. Everything else has been kind of a rough number, a rough estimate, a square footage, if you will. This is where we convert that into a concrete proposal that we can evaluate against the future of Lake County. And it's taken an immense amount of work to get to this point, but I'm grateful to our staff, I'm grateful to our fellow commissioners for working so hard on this heavy lift. This is not something we can avoid doing, but the fact that we're being proactive is ultimately going to save the county a lot of money. And as we've seen with our experiences in the old jail, a lot of grief. Because if we build it right and build it well, this will be a long-term asset over the next 50, 60 years that can be updated, repaired, used at the modest expense that should be the case with a well-built facility, as opposed to building something that just doesn't fit, that's too small, too large, cheaply built, and so it's always falling apart or giving issues. Once again, our past experiences with the old jail, this is an opportunity to do it right so that we set the foundation for the future of Lake County, and that wouldn't have been possible without Jason Boyd's hard work along with the sheriff and HOK and Jeff Applebaum. So this is really an important resolution that reflects almost 2 years of immediate work, but many years before that as well.
Sir.
Mr. President, I also like to, on top of that, just seeing the process for all this go through has been amazing, and I want to thank Mr. Hackman and the prosecutor's office. All of these contracts, all this stuff in front of us has gone back and forth between attorneys, I don't know how many times, to look out for Lake County so that we are getting the best that we can out of each of these contracts. And I was impressed by the due diligence on the staff and on the prosecutor's office. So thanks to all of you for doing that.
Thank you.
So Jason, should we approve this, I think we can safely say the clock is running. When they come back with a number, about how long out are we talking? How many months?
First of the year-ish, I would say. We'll get the schedule really dialed in over the next few weeks. As I said, the proposed timeline shows an in-depth review of the existing program to make sure things haven't changed since last year for a couple weeks. Then we'll get into schematic design about 16 weeks. So after schematic design is when we get that first number. So I would, and I will confirm in these meetings, but I would say around the first of the year, we'll start to get beyond just the rough order of magnitude based on square footage. But just speaking with Jason Wandersee, our project manager, a week or so ago, still seeing those trends in construction escalation, et cetera, in this particular construction silo. So that's going to be a key point when we get that first number for a very in-depth review, feasibility, et cetera.
And that number, again, to be abundantly clear, is only valid because there's an assumption that the project will be proceeding. Any delays in that will change whatever that number is. Got that straight from Jeff Applebaum. Wanted to make sure that that was entered into the record. I hope the meeting minutes will so reflect that. So I look over at our clerk and get a nice nod. And deputy clerk, thank you both ladies. We need to come up with a funding strategy how to pay for this. It can't be theoretical, it can't be words, it has to be numbers. Numbers that are real, numbers that are sustainable, and numbers that will not bankrupt the county for the next 30 years. If we can find a win-win to make this work, we've done it. Get it across the line. But I intend to vote for this, but it's under the clear understanding that we are not going to wait until that hard number gets here before we then say, well, now we're going to figure out how we're going to pay for it. I just want to be abundantly clear on that. I am going to keep pushing for hard, real numbers. So If there's nothing further,
And thank you, Commissioners, all three of you, for the comments. And just reviewing some of the budget stuff coming out of Columbus, I have seen a small increase in some of the jail funding. As you know, the sheriff's team, Chief Izzo and I, for the past 2 years, have put funding applications into Columbus for jail funding, and we've just come up short. I think we're the victim of our own successes, quite frankly. We're fiscally prudent. We're well thought out. We're planned. We have a great jail, great facility as far as maintenance and the TLC that we provide there. But I will be keeping my eyes on Columbus on this bucket of funds for jails. I mean, we have a number, albeit a rough order of magnitude. We have a site. We have an approximate square footage. Are we shovel ready? I think we could argue maybe we are. That's a lot of the things you hear about. Are you guys ready to go? Well, after assuming we pass this today, I think we can check a bunch of boxes that I don't know. There's a lot of counties who've talked, as we have for the past number of years, but today I think will put us ahead of a lot of folks as far as truly showing the investment in the design process and geotechnical engineering and consultants, et cetera, that we're taking this very seriously to get to that next, what I'll call ramp. I think Commissioner Amerchek, you and I used that term 3 or 4 years ago on this needs to have exit ramps if something were to happen, and I think that plan is working accordingly.
well said. Sheriff, is there anything you want to add, sir? Or are you satisfied with the discussion? Thank you, sir. Hold on. Slowly he turned, step by step. The older people in the room know what that reference is.
Are you okay?
Good morning, sir.
Jason's really messed up this process. You guys are. No, this is the third building project I've been involved in. It's really complicated what counties have to go through, government has to go through. And you think of it, when you do your own building, you say, well, I'm going to start it, then I just go out and get some more wood, get some more window. You have to define everything in this process. Not only the contracts are so complicated, and it's just a whole different world, and having the skilled people to be able to do that, like Mr. Applebaum. And then in this design build process, you can't just say, well, we want a window on that wall. It's got to be what kind of window, who's going to build it, where are you buying it from? Because once that's all done, anything you make a change, that window goes from $100 to $5,000 because it's a change. So this whole process that Jason is talking about is very burdensome. And so it is very complicated, and that's part of the cost factor in it. And unfortunately, that's something we're dealing with, but I appreciate moving forward on this. And Jason is a great person to be spearheading this.
Thank you, sir. All right, if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution authorizing advertising for bids for a gas chromatograph gas phase infrared spectrometer, mass spectrometer GCIRMS with auto sampler for the Lake County Crime Laboratory. Bid opening July 19, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Sir.
I know this sounds like a, shall we say, a ghost fighting device from Ghostbusters, but this is actually one of many technologies that are required in our crime lab. It's become incredibly complex in terms of tracking and identifying illegal substances, as well as anticipating what variants on those substances might come through. It's critically important that we understand the dangerous drugs that are being trafficked throughout our community and that are coming from different sources, and we have to have this technology in place. So we're very blessed to have a crime lab in Lake County that goes above and beyond what we can achieve just working through the state, and we're making sure that we still have the technology there so that our scientists and experts working with the county prosecutor can keep us safe.
Well said. And I'll add, as much as Prosecutor Chief Civil Prosecutor Hackman, I'm trying to remember what the heck your title is sometimes. Usually it's Just
won't
Dave,
tell you.
Somebody else has that line, just Dave. Breaking this down from the technical gobbledygook to something simple. I got to give you credit for that. I know that you wanted to make sure that this was understandable and not dummied down and watered down. That means a lot. When you get into some technical discussions, translating from the old flame absorption to laser excitation, all those things, nobody wants to see that. So you put it together in a way that people can understand it, and now it's our turn to just approve this darn thing. So thank you, sir.
I'm glad the clerk had to read it in front of the crowd, not me.
You got to see her when she reads the list of chemicals for the utilities department. Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, you're up.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes, thank you.
In the Finance Department, resolution approving payment of bills as listed on the Commissioner's Approval Journal in the amount of $2,953,961.72.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution approving purchase orders as listed on the Commissioner's Purchase Order Approval Journal in the amount of $1,514,433.24.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution increasing and decreasing appropriations for various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes.
Resolution transferring appropriations within various general and non-general fund accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? None being heard. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Plechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Very good. Moving on to departmental reports, utilities.
Thank you, Commissioner. This just a reminder that we're having our first special collections this Saturday at the fairgrounds. It's the Household Hazardous Waste Special Collections. It's a very popular event. And if you don't want to wait in line, I would wait till maybe 10 or 11 o'clock to come. At 8 o'clock in the morning, it'll be very busy. But we look forward to this event. It's now our only special collection is household hazardous waste. We have one Saturday and another one in the fall. The other special collections are now every single day that the landfill is open, where you can drop off electronics and tires and other things that we used to have just a single day for. So we look forward to that event on Saturday.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for utilities? Thank you. All right. Job and Family Services.
Thank you, Commissioner. On the screen is an important announcement that I wanted to share with members of the public today who receives public assistance benefits through Job and Family Services. So this would be any individual in our community that receives SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition, the Supplemental Nutrition Program, formerly known as food stamps, cash assistance, Medicaid, or PRC. So typically, for those folks that we are working with, when they have questions or concerns or changes to their public assistance benefits, they call through to our public assistance customer service line. That phone number is changing effective next Tuesday, June 13th. So we are trying to get the word out to the public because this is going to be a very big change. So currently, folks who call our public assistance customer service line, they dial 440-350-4011, and that number will not be valid after Monday, June 12th. So beginning Tuesday, June 13th, all of the individuals in Lake County who have questions, comments, concerns about their public assistance benefits should dial the number that is highlighted on the screen. That number is 1-844-640-OHIO, which is 6446. So we are, again, getting the word out to the public so folks are aware. All of the calls will come to Lake County. It's just they will be calling the centralized Ohio phone number.
So it begs the question, and we're not call forwarding the number that we already have. Why? We have a number that's about to go offline, but I believe that would be a Lake County phone number.
Correct. And we're going to have a recording on that phone number that the number has changed, and the customers should call this 844-640 Ohio number. So really, the reason for this change is there's about 78 other counties in the state of Ohio that use this call center number. So we are getting on board with 70 some other counties in the state of Ohio to do this call center. And there are a lot of benefits to our staff as well as the public to take this new approach to go through this centralized call center. The biggest advantage that we are going to have, and I think the individuals we serve are going to have, is that we will now be able to take an audio signature from clients over the phone. To be part of this, they refer to it as county shared services, to utilize this centralized state number. To get access to that technology, you have to be part of county shared services and part of this centralized call center. So with the audio signature, clients are not going to have to be looking for paperwork from their caseworkers. They're not going to have to drive into Painesville to drop their documents in our Dropbox. That's just one of many benefits to this new approach.
Gotcha. And just to be clear, the number is not just going to go dead. If I heard you correctly, there'll be a recording, say the number has changed. If you want this service, call this new number.
Yes, and when folks call the current phone number and hear that message that the number has changed, we plan to keep that on at least through the end of the year, so that clients are well informed that they need to call a new phone number. But I think it will be an adjustment period, and currently when they call our customer service line, someone picks up. When they call through the centralized Ohio number, you have to go through a couple of minutes of information that the state of Ohio is sharing with public assistance recipients. I called the number myself so I could see what clients could expect. But again, over 77 other counties in the state utilize this. Folks have adapted. Folks are used to this approach. So we're bringing it to Lake County.
Is there a cost associated with using the state system?
There is not.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Sir.
I would imagine one of the advantages of using the universal or the state number is that as new residents come into Lake County, they may already be familiar with the old number as opposed to a county-specific one, and so they're probably already used to calling this number.
Yes, that could be for folks moving here from other counties. You're correct.
Very good. All right. If there's nothing further, moving on to County Administrator Jason Boyd.
Thanks, Commissioners. Just a couple quick brief updates. The Commissioners approved a number of months ago an ARPA project regarding HVAC improvements in our courthouses. Brief update, I think, talking to Mark Eiffelise, we're about 90-95% through engineering and design with that project. So Mark has a couple team meetings scheduled up with the designers, start looking at the calendar, and then I will be scheduling some meetings with Mark and the judges, because this will be a complex construction project in historic buildings that are occupied, 8 to 4:30 every day. So we'll work on coordination with all of the judges on what works best on that. Just briefly, the phase 1 of the Sheriff's Range project, I would say the building itself is 99% complete. We worked through all of our electrical supply issues this week. They are live on First Energy 3-phase power, which was a bit of a challenge. I know Engineer Gills has been on site a couple times, starting to look at, or not starting, but finalizing kind of a grading strategy for parking, water runoff, etc. And secondly to that, we had a pre-con last week on site for phase 2. The 40 by 40-ish structure. That went well. I had a good feeling with the contractor representative on site, CRX Metalworks out of Wadsworth, I believe. So yeah, things are moving quite well. If you're out and about, I know the engineers out there almost daily. Detective Bell and Lou are out there. It looks pretty good. I know Root, the AV data contractors, I think they're on site now. installing the monitors and projectors, et cetera, for some of the training. Locker rooms done, plumbing's in. It looks really, really nice compared to what we had there a year ago. So be on the lookout for a ribbon cutting date. I'll work with Sheriff Leon Bruno for that, and then hopefully a groundbreaking on the second component, either the same day or shortly thereafter. That's planned to be done this fall. So
Excellent.
that's what I have.
Thank you, sir. Anything further? Thank you. All right, moving on. Madam Clerk.
Yes, I wanted to mention that the next commissioners meeting is going to be Thursday, June 15th at 10 a.m. And also the resolution that we adopted today with the schedule, that will be posted online this afternoon. And it'll go through, I believe, mid-October.
You got it. Thank you. All right, moving on to Mr. Science.
No reports, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. All right, County Engineer, Jim.
Excuse me, yes, I want to announce that as of Monday, the 12th of June, Williams Road between 608 and Cascade Road will be closed until further notice.
And estimated time for repair and reopening?
Well, we are going to receive the plans for repair on Friday, and the next thing is money, which we don't have.
Okay, so keep coming back to that. Okay, thank you, sir. Anything for the engineer? All right, moving on to old business. Do we have any old business coming for the board?
Mr. President,
Sir.
I have some very old, increasingly old business. Happy birthday, Mike Zern. It's our county treasurer's birthday today, so I think that qualifies for old business.
Nice. So we did get some further information back on the public safety side. Again, from a budgeting perspective, Motorola, we should be getting a formal proposal back from them regarding a additional channel for our radio system. Individual unit location with push to talk. Basically, whenever you crunch down on the microphone to say something, your location will be identified. The station alerting upgrades, we've got, as we all know, we've got fire stations that are not always reliably being alerted, so that's an ongoing problem. There's also funding in the quote coming for also Willoughby Fire's addition, and then the discussion regarding encryption for the police and fire radios. Motorola is coming back with what will very likely be just under $2 million, and that's deeply discounted, but we're kind of pushing a rock up a hill, so we're going to have to make a fairly informed and soon decision on that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware to be looking for that quote to be coming through. I don't know if we want to discuss the roads and bridges, but we do need to be making some decisions on that because we, well, this isn't old business, so we want to I'll not muddy the two. Any other old business? Okay, moving on to new business. We did, as we all know, got our notice from the Senate. They came back with their version of the budget. One example we've got is $3 million for the Menor Harbor, an additional $3 million, but there's a $500,000 match request from on the part of the state. I think we can all agree that, at least I hope we can agree that putting $500,000, although we're going to be getting $3 million, putting $500,000 into that project while we have closed roads and bridges would be a pretty bitter pill for the public to have to swallow. So we're going to have to really get serious about where we're at and what we're going to be funding. The other thing is the water plant did not get the approval for its armor stone for the lakeshore protection, so that's something that's going to have to be addressed. And I believe there were some pretty significant cuts from what I'm seeing to our school districts that are going to be challenging. Some districts, smaller ones, I believe, did get additional funding, and it's, I don't know, I'm not sure what's going on down in the state right now, but I don't know if you gentlemen want to add on to that.
Mr. President, I would just say it's disappointing that the state Senate ignored the requests that our local representatives got into the House version of the budget. I'm hopeful that they'll be put back in, whether now or later. But we had very strong proposals that would have funded significant local projects in the House version of the budget, and the Senate budget simply knocked those out. And you mentioned public school funding. My understanding is that every school district in Lake County receives significant cuts to their state funding, with the exception of Fairport Harbor and Kirtland. And while I'm glad to hear that Senator Serino was able to preserve his city's school district funding and even increase it, I live in Willoughby Eastlake, which was, my understanding is to receive about $1.9 million in state funding for the year, and was reduced to, if I'm not mistaken, $396,000. That's a huge cut to our local school district, and at a certain point, we need to come together as a community and advocate that these monies are replaced. We need to be forceful, because this will be a significant impact on local taxpayers. We all know that if the money's not there from the state, ultimately it comes out of our local taxpayer dollars, and usually that results in more levies on the ballot or significant cuts, neither of which is a pleasant experience for those concerned. So I'm not a fan of the Senate side budget. I like the House budget a lot more because it was far more generous to Lake County's needs. And I think we just have to come together and keep pushing our state legislature to hear that Lake County deserves to be respected and remembered too. The fact that we actually save money, we balance our budget, should not be held against us when these decisions are made. We heard from our county administrator, sometimes we're the victims of our own success. The state says, hey, you're not hemorrhaging money, so we don't need to help you. We should not be rewarding fiscal irresponsibility. We should be rewarding counties that actually have sustainable plans for the future. And I'm very disappointed that projects like Bacon Road that were in the House budget through the House Finance Committee are not in the proposed Senate budget. Now, this process is far from over. There's going to be conference committee. The Senate has proposed having a special capital projects fund. So rest assured, the county commissioners, and I'm sure our local elected officials and school board members, will continue to push that Lake County is remembered. But the current version of the Senate budget is not good.
Agreed. Commissioner Regovich, anything you want to add, sir?
I agree totally. So we can only hope that in the next few weeks here that the final version of this budget is a little more friendly, a little more like the House version. We did a letter of support for our projects to Senator Serino, so we're hoping that our voices are heard.
Agreed. All right, if there's no further new business, moving on to our second public comment portion. Anyone wishing to address the board? Anyone at all wishing to address the board? Mr. Massey. It's been a while. I haven't had a chance to pull your legs, so I still say you're going to walk around in circles with one getting stretched out. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive, representing lobbyists for citizens here. I attend a lot of meetings throughout the county school boards, narcotics boards, and I see a very disturbing trend. I think basically our society is imploding. I went to the narcotics board meeting and got some interesting statistics that I asked the question, well, how much does an ounce of, well, first of all, crystal meth, I guess, is making the rounds. That's the preferred drug of choice these days in Lake County. And I asked the question, well, how much does it cost? And I was told an ounce of crystal meth would be $350 per ounce. Again, not knowing really anything about drugs and the consumption, but I understand that you're not taking an ounce of drugs, you're taking a gram. There's 28.3 grams in an ounce. So at $350, a dose would be about $12. So it is a low-cost drug, and I guess that's why it's the preferred choice. But you compare that to cocaine. Cocaine is $1,800 per ounce, or about $63 per gram, and fentanyl is in excess of $2,000, which would be $70 an ounce. My concern with the drugs is like everybody else. It's really attacking our youth, destroying families, destroying lives. But I wanted to mention that so that people realize, they put some numbers on there. There must be an awful lot of money. When I hear that Sinaloa drug cartel is here in Lake County, Lake County residents must understand that this open border concept that we have down on our southern border, it's home here. It's coming home to roost here in our county, and it's destroying the young people. I also see, I understand today, I saw pictures. I went to Morley Library. Morley Library is having a Pride Pin party today at 4 o'clock for 9-year-olds, and we will be objecting to Ms. Martinez about that program. When you couple that with the pandering obscenity in the schools with the books, violation of Ohio Revised Code 2907321, it is a very slippery slope that we're in as a society. We talked about, funding for schools. I remember way back when lottery, they want to put that on the ballot and get everybody to agree to have the lottery, and gambling is now legal. That was going to, fund all of the schools, we were told. Doesn't even come close to that. But now I see that our Representative Jamie Callender, now wants to legalize marijuana, and is very proudly saying that 10%, there'll be a 10% sales tax on that will, fund all of our schools. So what I see is, in my opinion, we're on the wrong path as a society. And when you destroy the morality, bad things are going to happen. That's why we're spending more money on jails. We're going to need mental health issues. And I'm hoping that I still haven't heard from the prosecutor's office yet on my deal with the pandering obscenity. Hopefully I can hear from the prosecutor's office to say that, am I all wet on this, and then I shouldn't worry about the obscenity being offered in the Lake County schools. Thank you.
While you're standing there on the pandering in schools, as I've been following the exchanges of emails, I think I saw some communication from the City of Mentor's prosecutor, and I think there was some communication where if somebody can show where it actually is in the school or the library, the local prosecutor would then take a look at it if there was a police report filed. I think that was some of the dialogue. And I know the examples you shared with us were from a state source, found examples throughout the state.
The issue, the reason I got the prosecutor involved and was dealing with the mentor is that there are some residents in Concord Townships that belong in the mentor school district. So, who is representing that contingent of people, dealing with that problem? That's why I went to the prosecutor, but I haven't heard from Mr. Colson at all. I don't know if he just wants to ignore it, or if as long as he says it's not my problem, or it's not my issue, or I can't, as a prosecutor, I can't really get involved in anything that local. I'd really like to know that, because the people in the community, they want to know, is there anyone in the community protecting our children?
Understood.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Mayor. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Commissioners. John Marr, 39 Minnewawa Drive, Timberlake. I'm addressing, tomorrow's a quarterly Board of Directors meetings, you guys know, from NOACA, and there were 4, Mr. Gills left, but anyway, out of the 5 that we represent us. First of all, I know that I want to clarify something. One of the subcommittee meetings, it was brought up about changing the format of the public comment. Right now it exists, there's 3 minutes for 30 minutes for 10, I guess, people to comment, and it's going to be increased, I believe, to, it says, They're going to go 10 speakers. Right now, it's 10 speakers for 3 minutes. They're going to go to 1 hour, which is 30 minutes. They're going to go to 1 hour, 30 speakers at 2 minutes each. And then they're going to have another public portion for allowing another 2 minutes afterwards at the end. Is this what they're going to implement tomorrow, do we know? Or will this be enacted tomorrow for the following meetings?
I believe that is on the agenda for tomorrow.
Okay, now, when we do the public portion first, will we have 3 minutes or 2 minutes? Because
You would be under the rules that are enforced now,
3 minutes.
and we can get legal clarification from NOACA's legal counsel if once that's approved, if it takes effect immediately, which I believe it does. That's what I'm prepared to do, as also president of that board, that yes, that would take effect in that meeting, but we can get clarification from legal counsel at that time, if that would be to your liking. I know
And
it's
then-
to mine, so
And then, would we have a second public portion then?
that is my belief
Tomorrow?
and intention. But again, I need to get legal clarification from NOACA's legal counsel, that is
Okay.
in fact, I'm saying this without having benefit of our policies as far as when things become effective dates.
Yes, I understand.
I just don't want to, I don't want to be shooting from the hip on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Either way, though, whether we have the 3 minutes from the old way or 4 minutes now from the new way, it's still never going to be enough time to address, I think, all the major concerns I think we have as citizens. There are a lot, basically you've got a board meeting every quarterly, and then in between you've got 14, I believe, subcommittee meetings and committee meetings in between. I went to most of them this past quarter, and I've watched a lot of them online. I've been watching them, even though they're 5-6 hours long. Very, very informative. But one thing I did notice, first of all, most of the meetings don't even have a quorum to approve minutes. That's number one. So we don't have an attendance there, representation. Another one I noticed is that we're not represented. I believe Lake County is represented. There's one committee especially. It's the Safety and Operations Council. There's only one member who's the chair, which is from the city of Member, which is Alan Pennington. That's the only one representing all of Lake County. Everyone else is from all the other counties. So again, there's definitely an inequality of representation. And I mentioned this before on the board of directors. I mean, there's 45 voting members, 48 total, 3 of which are, I believe, Ohio, which are non-voting, but 45 voting, and then out of those 45, Collier County has 23 of the votes, which they have the majority. So basically, like I said before, what they say goes. So I know that they brought up there was going to be a restructuring of, they mentioned at one of the subcommittee meetings, it was a restructuring of the equity, like I said, and all the other committees, because again, the representation and again, having alternates and so forth. Well, again, I would like to invite myself to be invited to these boards and be able to speak at the table with everyone, because another thing I noticed is that they're not asking, I believe, appropriate or valid questions or, important questions that need to be asked about a lot of these things. A couple things I know they're going to be passing tomorrow, charging stations, they're going to be putting them in. And again, these are things that basically I don't understand how it's going to reduce CO2 when they only have a few in select areas. There's a lot of questions that I have, like who's going to pay for the electricity, the maintenance of these, who's going to traffic these things and make sure that they're operable. And again, the other thing I see is who's going to wait in line for these things. I mean, you go to a gas station, you can find a gas station everywhere. Right now, our phones go down to 5-10%, and we're stressing out. Can you imagine being in an electric car and we have 5 miles to go, but we only have 2 miles of charging left, and again, we're going to stress out for that. And you wait in line, and you don't even know if you have enough time, to get your car charged before it goes dead, because the guy in front of you, who knows how long he's going to take. And again, it's not like a gas station where there's one almost on every corner. Pretty much, there are going to be charging stations far and few in between. And I just don't see how it's going to work in Northeast Ohio. Just like the bike trails, I don't see who's going to ride those in the wintertime, who's even going to ride them in the summertime. As we know with the transit, no one's riding Lake Tran. I mean, it's virtually empty. The only one, Dollar Rider was really popular, and again, we should up that service and down the other one. But either way, what I'm suggesting is that all these plans that NOACA has, they're spending a lot of our dollars. Their budget is $12.9 million this year, and they project a $12.6 million budget next year, but they've got 10 requests for positions for employment on Facebook. So they want to add to the budget. In the meantime, they're going to go with a lower, they're saying that they're going to have a lower budget next year. I don't see how that's happening. Another thing is their plan of reducing CO2 is supposed to be reduced by 67.4% by 2030, and the plans that they just put out for bid for the grant money, those projects aren't going to be started and funded until 2028 and 2029, which is a year short of that target. So, and I don't see any other projects in between. And again, I just don't see the equity and equality for all, because again, if you put in a few charging stations one place, what about other areas, and then how are you going to service everyone? Same thing with the bike trails and everything else. Who's that really going to service, and who's going to really use them? And the other thing is, I think the safety end of it. I mean, every day we're hearing about another person getting hit on a bicycle. I mean, they're very, very dangerous unless you have the right equipment. And then again, if you're going to have a bicycle, it's not just a matter of buying a bike and using it. Yeah, I used to have bikes. I used to put them together as a kid. They have to be tuned up. The brakes have to be adjusted. Everything has to be set on it. You know, it's not like you can just get on it and go. Half the time you go to it, the tires are flat. You know, so again, all these plans they have, I guess what I'm going to say, like the old Wendy's commercial is, where's the beef? You know, where's the plan in the plan? I talk about them, they're saying we want to do this climate plan, we're going to reduce CO2 emissions, we're going to do this, but there is no plan that I see. All they do is they're talking about a plan, and again, I believe they're wasting our money because most of their dollars for their funding is federal tax gas dollars that is coming out of us, plus local funding that we're giving them. So we're paying them all this money, and all they're worried about is climate change, which they don't have a plan, number one. Number two, what about our roads and bridges? I see the same jobs, and a lot of them are suspended, or they have to add more money, or they're delayed. I mean, we should have new projects every day. You know, I mean, we're paying gas tax every day. Why aren't those dollars coming back to us? You know, we can fix our own roads and bridges, again, if they give us the money. We don't need to go through NOACA and then go through ODOT.
Put you up to that line, by the way?
No.
Okay.
No. But, so anyway, so again, I know there's a lot of people saying that, you know, we need to leave NOACA. I'm kind of on that same side now because, you know what, I don't think Cuyahoga County and Lake County, actually the other four counties, are a good fit. I think Cuyahoga County should be by themselves because they're a unique breed, okay? And again, it's just that they've got their own set of, most of the pollution, most of the CO2 is coming from them, you know, and again, they're the ones that have to do the most. And then we're the ones that are going to be penalized for it because we're going to be basically underlooked. And again, you know, again, what they pretty much says goes because they control the votes, and that's another thing. And they're pretty much on most of the boards. And again, I don't believe they're asking the right questions when these things are presented. So again, they're only giving us public a couple of minutes to talk. That's really not enough, you know, to coordinate. Again, we're trying to get together. We figure someone will say one thing, someone will say another. But again, when you have only quarterly meetings to a board, you only have a couple minutes to address it. You have these subcommittee meetings in between. No one's attending them. No one's really, you know, paying attention to them. And then again, even the ones that are on the board aren't really paying attention to what's going on. Pretty much they're letting NOACA do what they want to do and rubber stamping it, which is not, I believe we need to hold them accountable for what they're doing and, you know, pretty much scrutinize everything they are doing at this point. So, another thing they brought up was equity and inclusion. And, you know, the thing is this, I mean, equity inclusion, it doesn't mean inequality and exclusion for everyone else. And that's what they're doing. They're including one set of people, but they're excluding everyone else, which isn't the way really it should be. And then another thing they really discussed about was DEI training. I guess I don't see where that really comes into play with climate change or climate, you know, action plans and so forth, because we're all breathing the same air no matter who we are. I mean, I believe there's only one race. It's called the human race, and we're all in it. And pretty much, it's like we're all breathing the same air, eating the same foods, and, you know, we're in the same pretty much situation, so living on the same planet. So, you know, I just don't understand where there'd be disparities in that too. So anyway, these are some of the things I wanted to bring up to the board here because, you know, 3 out of the 5 are here now, and the thing is that, like I said, they only give us a couple minutes to talk, and they don't give us a chance to really voice what we really, you know, a lot of the concerns that really need to be brought up and said aren't being said. So I thank you, commissioners, for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was a lot. I'll try to address what I can. You're asking about the plan. That was what the big brouhaha was over the last few months, was there were some people who said, wow, it sounds like we have a plan. It's already been a done deal, yada, yada, yada. And several of us said, no. Plan means something's done. Planning means we're working on it. We're pushing. I'm taking a very strong position on the issue of it's about pollution mitigation, pollution reduction. People can call it whatever they want. My colleague had probably the most humorous line of them all. I won't steal your thunder if you want to reuse it, but my goodness, it's been a rather contentious series of meetings. We had a battle over $1 million from EPA for basically doing the inventorying and addressing how you would be able to utilize mitigation. We used the federal language. Some people were incredibly offended by that until we pointed out to them this is the federal language right from the grant that we're asking for. To say they had a little egg on their face would be putting it politely. I'm concerned though when I hear questions about diversity, equity, inclusion out of context. This was at the Equity Committee. That's the proper place to have that conversation. And if you recall, the most recent discussion had to do with just people starting to try to understand one another. Culturally, there are differences. And if we get to know one another, we might be able to get past those differences. This isn't the extreme, I'm hesitant to use the word woke and all these other labels, but it's not that. It's literally about, you want to talk about equity? Fully 2/3 of the pollutants are being generated in Cuyahoga County. If you look at the air quality monitoring, Lake and Geauga County are getting blamed for pulling down the air quality of Lake Geauga, Cuyahoga, Lorraine, and Medina counties. It's because their pollution's blowing into our two counties. Part of the understanding of planning needs to be addressing the point sources. What are those sources? Not just focusing on vehicular. It's everything. Because if we parked every single motor vehicle in Lake and Geauga counties, we're not going to move the needle one bit. And it's about local control. Your local elected officials representing you. When you talked about that one committee, I think when somebody's the chairman of that committee, that gives them a little bit of kind of a plus up on what they can say and what they can do. So when we have a Mentor official representing Lake County, I'd kind of say that helps. As far as EV stations, you got to start somewhere. I have no idea how people are going to try to say that, I'm going to call it the electrical budget. It's not there. It's like everybody turning their oven on at 6 o'clock at night and expecting the grid not to go down. Not going to happen. I can tell you there's a lot of discussion about microgrid, improvements to existing infrastructures. I think blending those discussions, we've got some legacy systems that date back to World War II. At one time, our region was a real powerhouse nationally. And there was no pun intended by saying powerhouse there. We had a lot of manufacturing, high energy use. That's moved on elsewhere, not only in our country, but worldwide, moved out of our country. But those systems still exist and they have not been maintained. If we can get those necessary improvements done, and I would be very proud, and we're talking with the city of Paynesville on some opportunities of what can be done right here in Lake County. And with the restructuring of First Energy and their new management teams, hopefully there'll be a little more open-mindedness to something other than what they happen to own in their portfolio. Again, you put an awful lot there to unpack. But before you say you want to walk away or destroy an organization, you might want to take a look at, well, okay, so what's the alternative? And again, I grow tired of hearing just words. Somebody damn well better start giving me numbers, otherwise I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm tired of the rhetoric, and it's really wearing me out. There's a lot of important projects that are in the works and that are at risk because of things like this. The disharmony, the foolishness, the fussing and the fighting, it's starting to wear us out up here. There's a reason why they call Cleveland the steak on the lake, because we just fight over every blankety blank thing that's out there. Our lakeshore should be something looked at with great pride nationally. We've got an abundance of water here. Some places are starving for water. We have too much of it. We were just at a stormwater, well, Commissioner Regovich, one of the topics of discussion. What the heck do we do with all this water? Those are the kinds of things that we're dealing with. So I'm just trying to keep things in perspective, but if you want to see alternatives, give us concrete numbers. Don't just give us speculations. And I don't say that specifically to you. I know there's others who like to tout, well, we can save this and we can do that. No, you can't. You can't get there from here. So I just want to be real clear on that. Anyway, is there anyone else in the audience or gentlemen, did you want to comment on anything? Mr. Music? Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, sir.
Morning. John Music, 45 Coventry Drive. I just want to thank the three commissioners for passing that Resolution 10. As they say, you can't get to the end until you work your way through it. So to start it, it started, and eventually we will finish it. As we all know, crime in our country, which last time I checked, Lake County was part of our country, that crime is getting worse and worse and worse. It isn't getting any better. And it isn't going to get any better. We have convicted criminals coming into our country, which we don't even know. That's was the last numbers I had, Commissioner Hammercheck, almost 3,000 people that have come into our country that have been convicted of crimes are now here in the United States, and we have no idea where they're at. So just think about that. I mean, we have no idea of who and why the reasons people are coming into this country. I've said this for 25 years. Nobody would listen to me, but all of a sudden, oh, you were right, you know? The thing about it, I'm all for immigration. All I ask is you follow our laws and do it the legal way. That's all I ask. And then also I wanted to mention, just like Jobs and Family Services mentioned, you know, our law enforcement. Like I keep saying, what's more important? We have elder abuse, eventually it could end up in our courts. We have, just like we were talking about, there's possibly, I think on the narcotics meeting, they were talking about a law, if you're going over 15 miles per hour, it could become more of an issue in regards to many, many things. And it's just that, my opinion is, I mean, I've said this, I don't know, a year or so ago, about the number of people that have been caught driving over 100 miles an hour. I've never driven over 100 miles an hour, never. And my thought is, why do people want to go this fast? Just like I've talked about the drugs and the gun there. You know, if I saw drugs and gun there, I'd call the sheriff department and say, hey, there's drugs. You know, if I found something, I'd stand there until they got there and did something with it. But you know, like I said, it goes back to what people do with what they can do. And like I said before, lawlessness breeds lawlessness. And you can see that's happening daily. And even with the elder abuse, she said 1 out of 10. That's sad, very, very sad. And the thing about it, I just wanted to mention that, and also Commissioner Hammercheck, you mentioned about, and I agree with you saying that we have to watch our spending. And when you talked about the schools, I go to the school board meetings, and I think our school dollars could be better spent. Our number one priority in our schools is education. And I go there and I don't see a lot talked about our education. It's about everything else, but not our education. I think it's 100% wrong. That should be our number one topic, in my opinion. And the thing about it, just like it was also mentioned about that bill down in Columbus. It's sitting in the Finance Committee right now, and it was assigned by the speaker to the finance committee, and I called the finance committee and my state rep. It's on marijuana again. It's, they just changed the name of it, and they say, well, we're going to use it for school funding and this, and I thought, you know, I'm not stupid. Trust me. I mean, we could say, hey, we could tax human smuggling and all this, all the drugs. We could let all the drugs come in. We could tax it. There's certain things we don't allow, period, for whatever money, dollar amount that is available. So the thing about it is, and hopefully that bill's sitting down there in the finance committee. We'll see if it comes to a vote. It was brought up about marijuana a while back, and it just died. It never came anywhere. You know, as you know, the speaker assigns it to a committee, and then the chairman of the committee takes it from there, and so forth and so forth. And then after that, it would go to the Senate. I called my state rep, and I've also called Senator Serino also in regards to if it ever gets to the Senate. I just want to give them my opinion. I'm against that law. So, you know, people got to speak up. And again, like I said, all I'm asking the three of you, and I say the same thing at my schools, because, you know, we were talking about schools earlier. Let's spend on our needs versus our wants. Because it's like the people, you know, I'm sick and tired, like it was mentioned earlier about numbers. Oh yeah, the amount of money's coming up is increasing. You know, if you look at the CPI and the PPI and all these, and the COLA and cost of living, blah, 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 and all that. And I listen to about 3 or 4, I record them, and I listen to these shows every day. Parts of it. I'd rather record it. You can skip the stuff you don't want to hear. But anyhow, the thing about it is, things aren't better. Just like they keep saying about, oh, this and this, because instead of paying $1 for this, I'm paying $2. Of course the money, the more tax dollars and so forth, but I'd like to say how many transactions are asking, just like your services. Your electric service, this service, if they raise the taxes, it's just the idea, well, the cost of the service has gone up, so therefore the dollar amount you're paying taxes has gone up. So let's be realistic. Again, the citizens of Lake County only have so much money in their wallet, so I'm asking all of you to be good stewards for us. And you know, the definition of stewards is being responsible for something that isn't truly yours. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, sir. And if I could just circle back, Mayor, I apologize, I forgot to mention regarding NOACA, you were talking about the structure and how the voting goes. There's also the executive committee. Cleveland and Cuyahoga County only have 1 vote each. The outer 4 counties, if we wanted to shut something down, we could. So the structure and the organization, there are checks and balances. So they could make the argument of, well, how could the 4 counties, the total population doesn't even equal theirs? So that same argument could be echoed back at us. So I'd be very careful of going there. But if it came down to a battle and ratification, if anybody want to make any radical changes, it's got to be ratified. And it would require a unanimous vote. So if any one county said, no, it doesn't proceed. So there are checks and balances. I apologize, that's in my notes, but I tried to go over it too quickly, so sorry about that. All right, is there anyone else wishing to address the board? Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your patience. I wanted to circle back on that.
That's all right. Tammy Gaber, 6023 Ford Road, Madison. Before I address that, I want to say I listened to last week's meeting. I wasn't able to be here. And I appreciate all of you taking the time to listen to people and give them the time, even though it may not be appropriate to what is going on here. Your kindness that was extended was appreciated.
Thank you.
I'm here again about the roads of Eastern Lake County. You've heard from the citizens, you've heard from the EMS services, you've heard from the township trustees. It's now time for you to let us know that something is going on, that you're looking into something. There's 3 of you up there to make a decision. We feel like, okay, we've all come and talked, but we like like there's nothing happening, there's nothing moving, there's nothing, like we're just being ignored. And it's very frustrating. We need to know that at least something is being done to move these projects forward. Williams Road just closed. We're another road shut off to having decent services and life-saving services. We depend on everybody out there. We don't just depend on our own township. And I will say too, we depend on the township, and we also have our own township police. But if they can't get there, then we're stuck. So I appreciate somebody telling us that something is being done. And I hear working on it, working on it, working on it. Working on it is just an easy phrase to say, go away, we don't have anything to say, we're working on it. And we need to know that action is being taken. And we understand there's financial issues. We all have financial issues. But we need to address this situation. You know, Blair Road is our last bastion to get to that corner out of Lake County. That's it. And from what I understand, we're in a dry spell, thank God, in a way. But that goes, we're done. We're done over there. You can't, there's no reasonable, easy way. And I got relatives that live on that end of the road and friends. And God forbid something should happen, they're stuck. They're in Nowheresville, you know? It's absolutely ridiculous. You guys are the managers of this county. Please tell us you're doing something, lay out a plan, and work on it and figure it out. It's that simple. But we just hear nothing. We hear crickets. And we're tired of hearing crickets. We need to hear action. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. President.
Sir.
Can I speak to that?
Please.
So I want to assure you that we are working on it. I know that sounds like a line, but I'm in talks with the engineer, the county administrations, or the township administrators group, our finance and budget office, and we're at this point putting something together, hopefully, that we can all kind of take care of those issues. So it's kind of a big lift, and there's a lot of people involved doing it, so that we're trying to make, I don't want to say everybody happy, but everybody walks away satisfied or somewhat disappointed. We probably did it right, but as long as it gets done.
And we appreciate that, and we know it's not going to all happen at once. I mean, you know, I run a household, and you have 10 things on the list that need to be done. You do one, and then the other, and the other, you know, but you break it down, and I appreciate that. We just would like to know, you know, what, I mean, I know you don't have to show a whole plan, but you know,
we're working on that plan.
Okay.
But our goal is to stay with the engineer's timeline.
Okay.
So we're hoping to, you know, get going this year. He's doing the engineering work in advance, so that'll be done.
They're doing some engineering work.
Oh yeah. So if you might have heard him tonight, he's going to have the plan for Williams Road by this Friday.
Okay.
So we'll know those kind of things. And
okay.
So those are all things that are happening. So they're doing the engineering.
What about Ford Road?
The priority list. The first 3 major items are the key. So we're going to see what we can do, and again, our goal is to stay on his timeline.
Do you know approximately what his timeline is?
He had stated it before. I don't remember the exact dates, but what he's talked about before. I know one was late summer and then fall. So I don't know which one was which, though.
Well, that's good to know, because we haven't felt like we've heard. I mean, Williams Road was the first thing, but, you know, we're sitting here thinking nothing's being done. You know, we're not seeing anything. And just conversation and communication to say, okay, these projects are in process and there is an end game, but we come and talk and we feel like we're just talking to the wall instead of to people.
It's hard for us to come up and say, here's what we're going to do, and then if that doesn't pan out, then it looks, and if we do that 3 or 4 times, you lose trust. So we are trying to come up with the best plan.
And I respect that, but at least just feed us something. You know, he's sitting there, he's working on it. There is a time frame. There is a
Ultimately, we want to
timeline.
give you the total truth, whether it's good or bad.
And I appreciate, we can live with the truth.
Yep.
We can't live with.
But I don't want to tell you the truth one day and it changes the next.
Well, I understand that too, and I respect that, but communication is a lot better than not anything at all. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Mr. President, I would just add that an important part of this solution going forward is to make sure that we never end up in a situation like this again. It's unacceptable to fall so far behind, and it's easy for any elected official to say this is unprecedented or a perfect storm or the first I've ever seen like this. And I don't know when we haven't heard someone say those things about any difficult issue. It's kind of the go-to phrase. If you're going to talk about a political line, that's a line. It's our job collectively to make sure that the unexpected is prepared for. There will always be unexpected needs, difficult issues, but we have to make sure that we don't put a Band-Aid on, because I can tell you the county does not have the revenue to subsidize any department to the tune of millions and millions of dollars a year. Each department does have to be responsible for the job it's given under state law, and part of the solution that we're going to work on is to make sure this never happens again. You can't fall this far behind and then 2 days before the budget is due say, whoops, I need $16 million, because that's not possible. And I'm confident that as we hash things out, we're going to create, to use my colleague's word, a sustainable plan so that this is not a problem next year and next year and next year. And I can tell you, I've heard from the West Side mayors, I've heard from people in Mentor about issues with Route 2. This is not a east side issue of the county. This is a Lake County issue. We have fallen way too far behind collectively on these projects. And, you know, we certainly work with each department, whether it be the recorders, the sheriffs, the clerks, or the engineers, but no department can come in and say, hack $16 million out of everybody else and hold me harmless. The solution that we have to put in place is one, so for the long term, this never happens again.
So I will try to be diplomatic, and I will try to use my own words that I said earlier. We have $114 million available. 80 million of it to be spent pretty much discretionary. Let's just set that aside for this conversation. Our county treasurer announced that we have $11 million coming in interest revenue, $8 million more than what we had anticipated and budgeted. Can we at least just talk about, we have $8 million of additional revenue that's I'm going to call it a one-time, because I did listen carefully to our investment advisor that yes, that there will probably be another cycle of that. But as I've said numerous times, we've never been in a stronger financial position, but we've never had more demands on these dollars. That $8 million will make a difference. And I'm going to say, as a businessman, as someone who served in public safety, and now having been a councilman and now a commissioner, no, you don't have to do things one thing at a time. There's a reason why we have a staff in the engineer's office, and there's a reason why under the Ohio Revised Code those roads and bridges say Lake County Commissioner on them. Can we please get these roads opened, these bridges fixed, replaced? I've said it before, I'll say it again, this is Russian roulette with people's lives. This could be a win-win for all of us, and I'm trying to find some diplomatic way of saying this. We can all come out of this. I've gone over the engineer's budget ad nauseum. I don't see where they can make any cuts to pay for this. We get the bridge and road reports every year. The condition was shown that they were deteriorating. This wasn't a surprise. The timing, when Senator Serino said we can't get you any money, that's what triggered Engineer Gills in a timely way bringing that to our attention. That was the last hope for outside dollars. Done. There was nothing left. And as I said earlier in the meeting, we've got the Senate giving us $3 million for a harbor improvement with a $500,000 grant. Do you want to go down and walk around on Ford Road and ask neighbors down there, hey, do you mind if I spend $500,000 over here? We'll get to you eventually. These are the kind of things that underwriters are going to look at when they're reviewing our financial worthiness if we're going to bond for the jail. We can't ignore these things. So I'm trying to be diplomatic. I'm trying to keep my passion within due bounds. We have the money. Now do we have the will to do wise things with it? So I'll give you both an opportunity if you want to add to that. Or we can just move on.
And Mr. President, I would only add that the money in Lake County savings has been spent 100 times by 100 different people, and that's a conservative estimate. So to say that there's $80 million when we know that a jail project is going to cost 150 to 170 million, maybe 140 to 170 million, that really means we're 70, $80 million short. Not that we have 80 million extra. So while I certainly am hopeful that the projections that the Treasurer has published come to pass, we also know that investments don't always return the yield expected and that interest won't be paid on funds that are expended. And we know that there are going to be major expenditures from some of the people who contribute to that savings balance that generates the interest, like Lake Tran, for example, is going to be spending a big part of their balance as well. So those are estimates. At the end of the year, we'll know for sure what's actually available. We'll also probably know at the end of the year, early next year, the actual cost of the jail, which our county administrator warned those numbers could well be higher, given that we're still seeing increases in cost. But every department is, and I don't want to pretend that the commissioner's direct responsibility is any different from the engineers, the treasurers. Everyone is experiencing inflation, and we all have to plan for it. Once again, it's not enough to just put a Band-Aid on or bail out a department. There has to be a long-term sustainable solution, and those are never fun. Those are never easy. It's much easier to come and say, Lake County doesn't really have any extra money, I know, but just bail me out and let everyone else figure it out. Every department head could make that argument, how they are uniquely important, they're facing uniquely difficult issues, and frankly, we can't say yes to one and no to everybody else. We have to give the same fiduciary respect to each department. We do. And so we have to have a solution, and I think that we will find one. I'm relatively confident that we will, that prevents this from happening again, because I guarantee you next year it will be the same thing, the same thing, the same thing if it's a Band-Aid. Maybe Ford Road will be done and you'll never come back, but there will be another road and another road and another road. And that's not acceptable. We need to have a solution that guarantees this doesn't happen again, and that will be a difficult solution. That will not be a good solution from the perspective of someone who just wants to continue business as usual. It's going to require some substantial changes. And I have a lot of confidence that we will reach that and that we will reach it soon. As Commissioner Regovich said, even with the plans done, the engineer said, I wouldn't even be starting on this now, even if the money was in the bank. It would be late summer, fall when we'd actually begin. So there actually has been no delay from a funding perspective in that respect. If the engineer had the money, this is what he said last time, that he wouldn't actually be boots on the ground and doing the work until later anyway. So there actually has been no delay. That doesn't mean that there's not significant concern here. And I think we all should be working with all due speed so that there can be answers for the people who are affected. I agree, communication is important, but we have to know something to share it with you. And so we need to have some agreements and we need to have some understandings between all parties involved to make sure that this doesn't come back again next year with a whoops. Now there's 5 other roads that are shut down, and I have no plan for that either. Just telling us I'm shutting down a road is not a plan. There has to be a plan to pay for it, and the plan can't be find it from another department, find it from another department. We can't keep spending that $80 million over and over and over again when we have projects that we know we have to do that are more than double that amount. I mean, unless if I can't compare $170 to $80 million, we're not washed with cash here. There's not unlimited money, and so we do need to have difficult solutions. And while the county may be able to help in this extraordinary circumstance, we have to make sure it never repeats. We have to make sure that we don't have a situation where we're asked for $15, $16 million by any department. And I'm not singling anyone out, but if the recorder comes up and says, whoops, I'm 16 million short, we're going to have the same conversation as we would with the engineer, the treasurer, or any other office. That cannot happen again. We have to work together to make sure there's a long-term sustainable solution. Even as we take care of Ford Road, we need to make sure that this doesn't happen with Williams Road and the road after that and that and that. There has to be a long-term sustainable solution. And while I am disappointed that Senator Serino was unable to give any funding for the engineers department, and it's worth noting that the Senate has not, from the perspective of Lake County, I'm not singling any senator out, the Senate has not done its job. The House has been very responsive and has listened to the county's needs. The Senate has not. That's a fair point. But the request to Senator Serino was for $3 million, not for $16 million. So I would reasonably ask, what was the engineer's office planning to do with the other $13 million? It can't be, well, Serino said no, I'm $3 million in the hole, so now I need $16 million. What were we going to do about the other 13? There has to be a long-term plan. It's not enough to take this 6 months at a time or one road at a time. I need to see from the engineer's office, how am I going to fund the roads that are coming up from Ford to Williams on down for the foreseeable future? And the answer can't be every time I run out of money, take it out of another department's hide. Because I can tell you, once this jail project is underway, there's not going to be $80 million in the bank. There's going to be a bond for $80, $90, $100 million that we're going to be making annual payments on. If anything, the commissioners are going to be looking to the individual departments and saying, what savings can you find us? So this is not a bank that people are going to be able to come to every time they don't balance their individual departments. If anything, the commissioners will say, hey, can you save $1 million this year? So we cannot have a Band-Aid. We need to have a long-term solution where everyone can feel with confidence the engineer has a plan to make sure our bridges are repaired and our roads are repaved. The lights on Route 2 are finally fixed, and it is way overdue. The lights on Route 2, I've been getting complaints since the day I was appointed commissioner. It has to be done, and it has to be done now. And there needs to be a plan to make sure that it is done for the future. And the answer can't just be, well, either the county commissioners or the state of Ohio need to give me more money. You have to have a plan, even in the worst case scenario, to make things work. This is not unique to Lake County. Every county has the same funding structure, the same funding that comes from the state to meet these needs. That doesn't mean that we are not going to work together to meet this difficult situation that has occurred because there hasn't been long-term planning. But I'm not going to just say, let's put a Band-Aid on it and hope for the best, and then next year go, uh-oh, here we are again. There has to be a long-term plan so that we don't have the next group of residents and the next group of residents rightly outraged because there was not a plan to fund their project and their road and their community. There has to be a plan.
And that being said, this is the environment where these kind of discussions legally have to take place. It would be very easy to have this sitting over a cup of coffee in the back. We legally can't do that. So if you see a bit of spirit from the three of us here, that's where that's coming from. I'm also of the opinion that it takes money to make money. You know, in reference to the other monies, that basically what Engineer Gills has historically done is put together what I think we term a capital stack. He's been working, so the money that Senator Serino was unable to secure was part of a capital stack, and as we've all said, keep looking. That money would have made a difference, but I can't in a clear conscience say I'm working on this or I'm looking at that and not address this. The engineering is ongoing, but it's kind of the Army of the Potomac. We can drill and drill and drill and put all kinds of pretty designs on paper and key it into a computer and get some cost estimates, but until we're ready to put a shovel in the ground, and I would be remiss if I didn't say part of that 16 million had to do with roads that are 80-20. You know, all we're looking for is the 20%. We're risking losing 80% on roads. That Menor Harbor project. For $500,000, you get $3 million in value. That's, on the face of it, a pretty good deal. But I can't justify spending that. Again, we have to have the commitment to get this done. I agree that sustainability, I agree that reading these bridge and road reports is critical, because when you start seeing the conditions deteriorating, but we've been hit hard. We've got a lot of older infrastructure. One example is the, Kirtland Hills. There's a bridge out there that had failed probably 20 years before it should have. It was built by a private contractor, had ponding issues, the salt got into it, the pre-stressed concrete, multiple failures, it's down to one. I think that was a $1.8 million project. People were upset that it wasn't ornamental. I feel for them. It's a beautiful neighborhood. It's the bridge on the way in really looks good. It's in a lot of literature. But when you're weighing ornamental to people who just don't even have a bridge, and I've had conversation with them and expressed that to them. And Engineer Gills is working that through with them, and we're trying to find ways to use some land design and some other ways to accentuate and make it look more curb appeal, but not dumping a lot of money into it. The Route 2, I can tell you, this is my electrical contractor speaking here, there was a bridge repair where a contractor came in and cut the cables. They didn't follow the proper ODOT prescribed best practices from an electrical or engineering perspective, because they needed to quote unquote make it safe while they worked on the bridge. They literally, the engineer had to bring in an outside contractor to literally trace the cables, pull the light pole. Those are the kinds of things that are not easy to find, especially when somebody just cuts cables. And then to restore that power, you've got to go through the utility company engineering, because now you've got damaged connections that need to be replaced, and then you've got to meet their requirements in addition to ODOT requirements. So it's a compounding problem over and over and over. And I can appreciate people being upset that the lights are out. I get that. I can also appreciate that, and I'm not trying to minimize any of this, that the lights are out, the grass isn't cut, that there's garbage blowing off of garbage trucks heading to the landfill. But we are still talking about roads and bridges and life safety. And I just can't get past that. So hopefully we can come to some conclusion. Hopefully we can get some hard numbers that we can all agree on, and maybe at our next meeting we can put this thing to bed. I believe in talking with our treasurer, I believe in talking with Mr. Matus, the monies are there. If we can just get a firm commitment and move forward with this. So, I don't know, Commissioner Regovich, anything you want to add, sir?
Nope.
Man, a few words.
Mr. President, I do have to say, with respect to Kirtland Hills, back to the issue of communication, I think what residents are really concerned with there is they were never told that the county had very clearly shared there are two paths that can be taken with repaving the bridge. Now, the funding from the state is only there to do the basic redo of a bridge, not ornamental, not fancy. But if your community wants to pay to have a mirror image of the old bridge, then you can tack the money onto what the state has provided. And so if you as a community are willing to contribute and to make the bridge what it was before, that can be done if you pay for it. You know, it's your community. If you want to pay an extra assessment to have the bridge exactly as it was before, you can. And my understanding is that the homeowners associations and the residents were not told that that was an option. And I'm not here to point to any one person to blame. I'm not here to blame Kirtland Council or the mayor or the engineer, but the bottom line is somewhere in that process, there was a misfire where the residents, the average person who lived in Kirtland Hills, was not told, here's the option that the engineer gave to the village. We have the funding from the state to redo your bridge. That's a great thing, but only a bare minimum functional bridge, not the beautiful monument that you have today. That should have been shared. The residents had a right to know that if they were willing to step up and pay the difference, that they could have had their old bridge restored. They should have had that option. And my understanding is they have a petition with hundreds of residents which would be more than enough if they actually had a vote as a community, that they would have had probably a majority vote in favor of paying the difference and paying a special assessment. I think they deserve to have that option. So that communication should have happened, and in the future, we need to make sure that people know what their options really are, so that they have the chance to make that decision as a community, as opposed to, it's too late now, the bridge is going to be built as is. And yes, the engineer's office is working very hard to give them options for what could be done to beatify the bridge after the fact. That's good, and I commend the engineer for doing that. But in the future, we need to make sure that residents know what their options are from square one, so they have that flexibility.
Oh, and I appreciate that. I too had that same narrative explained to me, and it didn't sound right, it didn't feel right. I sat down at length with our engineer, Jim Gills, and his team. They gave me a great deal of documentation, email communications. I did meet with several neighborhood representatives of that community, and if I could just briefly give you a little bit of the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, the history of that was, it was a private development, a private developer put the bridge in. It was ornamental in nature. It's about 30 years old, the bridge. It should have lasted 50. The village of Kirtland Hills took ownership of it because it was more than the homeowners association could support. When it started to go into failure, there was some arrangement. This I'm a little cloudy on the details of. Somehow the county engineer took ownership of it. I'm assuming, and we all know about assumptions, it's because of the expertise associated with fairly large bridges of this nature that we'd be able to, when I say we, the county engineer, be able to inspect, maintain, and properly certify it for worthiness and loading. As the progress of deterioration proceeded, the engineer had to make the call to reduce the load limit, the live load. The failure in communication, and I did see the documentation, and I talked this through with several residents who were leaders in that petition drive. It was the homeowners association that failed to communicate with their residents. The narrative that the engineer has failed to communicate is a false narrative. The village of Kirtland Hills also acknowledges that that is not the failure of the county engineer or his team. If anything, they're guilty of talking too much, which in my book, there is no such thing as talking too much. There was a big kerfuffle over lamp poles that are rusting and who's going to get ownership. Again, a little bit of a minutia there, but at the end of the day, the failure of communications comes back to the homeowners association. I've seen the emails. I've talked to the people who are actual residents there. Their frustration is internal. There's a little bit of a movement to correct it internally on a go-forward basis. Again, I give high praise to our engineer's office for their level of communication with both the village and the residents. And I am disappointed, just again, the information that was provided to me that the homeowners association put a narrative out there that it looked like it was actually our engineer. So I too had been told that, but I invested quite a bit of time in that to drill down on it. So just that's the rest of the story. Is it's not our engineer's fault.
Mr. President.
Sir.
I explicitly said I'm not ascribing blame. I'm simply observing that at some point there was a breakdown in communication. Not saying who's responsible for it. I don't think it's helpful to try to point a finger at anyone, whether it be a homeowners association or elected official. I just think that the people of Kirtland Hills were disadvantaged by not knowing that they had an option.
And I will assign blame on the homeowners association. They have a fiduciary responsibility to maintain the value of those homes. They have a fiduciary responsibility to maintain the integrity of the community. And there seems to be some confusion because it's split between Kirtland Hills and I believe Kirtland. There's that Mason-Dixon line within their own community. So you can even have neighborhood politics. But at the end of the day, an exhaustive effort has gone into the difference of an ornamental bridge versus just get me something. We've even had a gentleman in here talking about Bailey bridges, dropping temporary stuff in place. I can tell you, just again, some discussion, some people are fighting over slate. that, oh, this is some expensive slate. It's like, take a look at the picture, look at the size of the dimensions of the wood, and then you realize, what do you mean that's Home Depot slate? There was this rumor that had started in their community that some fine foreign slate that was brought here special for great narrative, sounds good if you don't know what you're looking at, but it's the difference between gold and iron pyrite. It's not worth saving. There was some talk about saving the slate off of the little guard shack and saving the poles. When I was talking with one of the people who actually turned out to be an engineer, I said a lot of these poles rot from the inside out. I said, by the time you start to see corrosion on the outside, it's ready to fail. He said, yeah, we're getting corrosion on there. It's like, okay, so we're in the same point. Try to find a vendor that would reinstall these same light poles. You're not going to get that. But that level of communication, though, I don't want there even be a wisp of belief that our engineer had failed in that. It's not the engineer's job to go door to door and say, would you like this? Would you like that? One of the other things, there was an argument about a sidewalk on the bridge. And fortunately, I was able to point out that that's really not by the way, there's no sidewalks leading up to or exiting the bridge. There's just what appears to be a sidewalk. And it's actually a raceway. And a raceway, for those who may be wondering what that is, that's where you put conduits. And in these conduits were housed the electrical for this development, phone lines, and irrigation. There just happened to be a walkable surface on top of it, which people looked at and called a sidewalk. So they were able to delete that because the utilities were relocated to aerial rather than burial, and they didn't need to transition under the river or over the river. They did it over the river by poles. Again, I'm getting kind of technical, but I think you need to hear the depth and the utility coordination that has been handled by our engineer's office. That level of coordination and communication does not happen by accident. And again, I do assign blame back to the homeowners association. I've seen the communications, I've seen the petitions, and it all points back to a failure internally, not externally. Just, again, I need to be abundantly clear that there's no doubt, and I don't want to see any of this wind up on our engineer's shoes. So, all right, is there anything else? Anyone else wish to, ma'am? Thank you for your patience.
Lori Bobin, 6067 Ford Road, and I'll keep this brief because we have talked about it quite a bit. So first of all, let me say I appreciate to hear that it's being discussed. It's being talked about. There's something that's actually some sort of plan that's being fomented. I appreciate that very much. And more so than a matter of convenience, I just want to reiterate to the commissioners, it's just such a unique, urgent safety situation. The way those three roads, Blair, Ford, and Payne interconnect, that it creates this void of availability for emergency services. You know, it isn't a road on this area, a bridge over there. It's just the way that those three interconnect that makes this such a vital, important safety concern to so many residents down there in my corner. So I just appreciate that you're continuing to work on it and wanted to reiterate just what an immense safety concern this is. Even more so, way above and beyond an inconvenience. It's just the way those roads are laid out, and again, the triangle that they interconnect with that makes it so hard for emergency services to respond to people in that particular area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wish to address the board? Anyone else at all? All right, thank you. And we do have a request for an executive session, so if I could get a motion to adjourn. The purpose will be real estate pending acquisition. There'll be no business to be conducted afterwards. Can I have a motion to adjourn for the reasons so stated?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Regovich.
Yes.
Commissioner Klechnik.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammercheck.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today.